On this episode of Rock School Proprietor Podcast, we're joined again by our friend Sam Reti of Musi.live. Sam spoke with us just a few short months ago about AI and how changes in that technology could likely change music lessons. AI is advancing so quickly. Since our last conversation, ChatGPT can now give musicians real-time feedback on things like what chord they're playing on guitar. Stay tuned. Welcome to Rock School Proprietor Podcast. I'm John Kazicki.
And I'm Mandy York.
And Mandy, we are welcoming back Sam Reti. He is our first return guest. Sam, how are you doing today?
Hey, that's an honor. Thanks so much for having me back. I'm excited.
Sam is the founder of Musi.live, which is an online video lesson platform. And Sam, it wasn't very long ago that we had you on the podcast the first time. It was only 3 months ago. But what we were talking about is like this very timely and quickly changing topic of AI and what it's going to do in music lessons. So we thought we'd have you back on. For anyone who hasn't listened to that, that was episode 17, AI and the Future of Music Lessons. So you can go back and check that one out. It's actually, Sam, that was one of our most downloaded episodes at this point.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. So to kind of get into why I wanted to have you back so soon, Sam, when we had that conversation, one of the things that we spoke about on that episode was specifically, I asked you, and it was a broad conversation about AI and how it's going to impact and how it is impacting music lessons. But I asked you pointedly, how long do you think it is before we're in a situation where we're getting real-time feedback from AI as we're playing? Meaning, here I am playing a guitar and ChatGPT or whatever AI is giving me feedback on my technique. Do you remember what you said?
I mean, years. Yeah, not the real answer, which turned out to be a few days.
Yeah, I think you had said we're still a couple of years from that. And yeah, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, it was more about, because there are a lot of tools available in music lessons that utilize AI, some of which you're using in Musi.com or Musi.live already. But this idea of like the AI acting as an actual teacher is what we are speculating, which is that's scary to a lot of music instructors.
Definitely.
So that was 3 months ago that we talked about this. The episode came out a couple weeks later, and then a couple weeks after that, you had sent me a message with a video regarding a ChatGPT update. Mm-hmm. Do you remember the video you sent me?
Yeah. This is basically they gave ChatGPT eyes through the guise of a camera built into your phone or whatever device. But is, in that particular video is being able to look at something and give instructions on how to use it. I think it was the coffee machine, and it was doing that. But then I sort of took that to another level and thought, okay, well, if it can see this coffee machine and give instructions on how to make pour over coffee in real time, can it look at someone playing an instrument and give instructions on that? And the answer is kind of, yeah. So it's not 100%, there's still tons of room for growth and improvement. And this was not like, it's not like they came out and specifically did this for music lessons or for teaching music or anything like that. So to kind of put it in perspective, this is, which I think actually makes this more interesting, because the focus was not, can this look at an instrument and give feedback? But the byproduct of the technology is almost exactly that, is that you can turn on this feature now and it fires up the camera on your phone and you can have a pretty human conversation just going back and forth, and it speaks back to you in real time with a voice. So instead of
Yeah.
chatting back and forth, you're now talking back and forth. So that's sort
Mhm.
of the first layer, right? So even if we take out the camera and we're just talking about conversational AI, which was a big leap within itself, but this took that to a whole nother level by providing the camera feed. So the first thing I did is grabbed one of those guitars off the shelf, uh,
Mhm.
put the camera on my desk, stepped back a foot, played a chord, and I actually didn't even strum the chord. I literally just put my hand in the position on the guitar of like a D major chord. And I
Mhm.
said, what chord am I playing right now? And
Yeah.
the AI thought for a second and said, looks like you're playing a D major chord. And then it actually followed up with a couple of like, remember, if you're playing a D major chord, you can either wrap your thumb over the top or put your thumb on the back of the guitar to keep your wrist a little further out. And
Wow.
it started actually going into detail about how to execute that chord. And it sort of talked about like which strings you want to strum versus which ones you might not want to strum in the chord. And now it wasn't 100% accurate every single time. Like if you start playing a little more complicated chords, it has it fails. It'll think, if you're playing a G major chord, it might think you're playing like a C major chord. It's not 100% accurate. So, I do say with a caveat of like, this isn't ready to roll out tomorrow afternoon for students to go
Sure.
and replace their teacher. But within weeks of us talking about something that I was pretty confident was years away, was turned out to be weeks away. And
Yeah.
again, this wasn't built for what we're talking about. So if somebody goes in there and starts training it on music lesson videos, on data, on teaching techniques and things like that, and sort of builds a model using, the back end technology from like OpenAI, for example, then you can see a world where pretty quickly you've got something that actually has a decent understanding of what it's looking at and hearing. Like I said, I didn't even strum the chord. I'm sure
Right.
if you strum the chord and give it the visual information, now it's got two pieces of the pie, and that's going to be a lot easier to build together. Now, again, that's not exactly how this works, but it shows the potential for something very soon.
Yeah, I can kind of see a parallel between what you're talking about and the YouTube video put out by ChatGPT. And in that YouTube video, again, they were making a pour over cup of coffee
Mhm.
and getting feedback from ChatGPT. How is my technique?
Yep.
ChatGPT says, "Oh, you're doing pretty good." You know,
Yeah.
it was wild, and I would argue that yeah, everyone drinks coffee,
Mhm.
right? Narrow that down though. How many people drink pour over coffee and make their own pour over coffee? That's a much more narrow skill,
Yeah.
right? So when you're talking about like a D major chord, for instance, on guitar, it's pretty common.
Right.
But then when you're talking about the other chords that it had some problems with, okay, it stands to reason that's a it's a lesser used chord.
Yeah.
I can see how things are getting more and more precise. Now, in your opinion, now I haven't played around with it
Mhm.
on guitar. I've been thinking about what could it do the same thing for other instruments?
Well,
I'm thinking piano would be an easy one.
yeah. Yeah, piano to me is the logical one. If I had put my piano away, so it might be worth just dragging it out to give it a shot. But because piano is so finite in respects like C major or C, middle C is middle C, right?
Yeah,
Or on a
yeah,
guitar, there's five of them. So that position of your hands, things like that on a piano are much more cut and dry than they are on a guitar. And like one of the reasons I think it struggled with like G chords is your hands much more like overlapping itself and things like that make it kind of hard to actually see the fretboard behind your hand.
yeah,
So that is where you can see like the visual is not all that's needed. The audio together probably would be needed in order to make that actually understand what chord you played. But on the flip side, a piano, much more visual. I could probably just lay my fingers on the chord, not even play it, and it can just understand based on the location on the piano what chord that is. You know?
Yeah, and I think offering that feedback on technique will be tricky.
Yeah.
For many instruments. I mean, I'm thinking specifically of piano. Yeah, you can get an overhead view, and you can see fingers in the right position and on the right keys to recommend changes in technique. You might need a different view. You might need like a side view to see how are the wrists?
Yeah.
How do the wrists look?
Are they sitting up correctly? Is your body
Yeah,
posture like is your
yeah,
yeah, there's exactly. So that's why, like I say, this is the infancy of this technology. But as we kind of said, the fact that it came out so quickly after we were speculating it would take so long was kind of fascinating. But you're right. I mean, but on the flip side, I can imagine a world where I've got a phone over here and a phone over there, and they're both streaming, the videos, and then I've got it hooked up to one system. I mean, even in music lessons, people use 2 or 3 cameras to like for drum teachers, they'll have one on their
sure,
foot, one over the hi-hat, one behind their head, one over the ride cymbal. Like, if you provided all of that and
yeah,
had all that information, then, and again, this system does not exist yet. We're talking a hypothetical at this point.
right,
Like nobody's built a platform where you can plug all the cameras in, get it to render them together. And that's a lot of work. So this is why I try to caveat with all these sort of new things with the concept is available, the application isn't. So,
sure. And I think we are still kind of in that Wild West phase with this technology where everyone's trying to figure out, those who have the resources and are bold enough to figure out how to leverage it, like yourself, right? Like in Musi,
yeah,
are all sort of scrambling to see who's going to be first. And then, because whoever's first is going to have the advantage. So I think we have to assume, like, yeah, someone's probably trying to make this stuff happen.
yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah, yeah. Now, do you think, again, we speculated on, like, is it going to replace music instructors?
Right.
And I think our general consensus was, well, maybe not.
Yeah.
However, it'll change.
Mhm.
Like maybe it'll eliminate a couple of music instructors, right? Who are like diehards and just not willing to update their technology. It still seems more like a tool to me.
Yes. Yeah. Now, the way I really see this actually being fundamentally game changing and allowing the progression of music to actually like drive forward at a pretty incredible rate is in more of a practice setting. Is you still want a teacher. Human feedback is going to be fundamental to music forever because it's such a human thing. Even with the AI models that write music, all that's actually doing is mimicking what humans do. So it's still a human thing that at the core, So the way I see this is, imagine I take my lesson with you once a week. 7 days of 6 other days of the week, I'm not with you because I logically couldn't afford to book a teacher every single day of the week. That's
Right,
kind of
right.
the unrealistic expectation. But what if I had a model that's actually trained on your teaching style, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you who fed the model the information. And so now when I'm at home practicing, I can call up AI John to check in on my practicing with me. So I have, your feedback really in these situations where I couldn't really realistically get your feedback. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
And I can see that being a nice add-on for instructors and something to set themselves apart from
yeah,
the sea of other instructors. It's very interesting to me, and I definitely think where I before we started talking a lot about this, I was personally sort of like, I don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to take all our jobs? Maybe. I don't know what's going to happen. But the more that I talk about it, the more I think about it, the more I play around with with AI platforms, the more I am starting to get comfortable with the idea of how I can use it
Yeah.
to improve what I do, be faster at certain tasks. So, for instance, I was just playing around with ChatGPT
Mhm.
today, and I have a, a sheet of paper with probably, I want to say like 20 to 30 handwritten chord diagrams on it.
Yeah.
A full sheet of paper, like the chord diagrams are handwritten too. So the lines are shaky, the dots are all over the place. And I thought, can I feed this to ChatGPT and get it to clean it up for me and put it in a format that I can use? So I gave it very specific instructions. I said, I'm going to give you this hand-drawn sheet of paper that has these chord diagrams on it. I want you to clean them up, format them, straight lines, dots, letters and numbers. That's step one. Step two, I want you to put it into a sheet for me that is in EPS format at least 300 DPI. Yeah, so those are the very specific instructions I gave it. And I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. And so it repeated like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to format it. I'm going to do this. When I'm done, I will let you know. Right. So it had been about 10 minutes and I'm like, I still don't have anything. And so I asked, any estimate on when this will be done? And it tells me about 6 or 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours. Do you want me to give you updates on it, or do you just want me to let you know when it's done? So it hasn't been 6 or 8 hours yet. I don't know. I'm like, yeah, I'm dying to see what happens though,
Yeah. I I mean, that's exactly how I see the use case for AI being the realistic, like a almost perfect parallel to that is the way that we use it in Musi right now. And I was actually just speaking at a class at Berkeley a few hours ago about exactly this. And it's interesting kind of hearing the younger kids sort of thoughts. So, all the new, fresh out of college, going to
Yeah.
be teachers soon and how they all see it. And when I was going through all the features of Musi and everything, what we do when we hit the AI part, you could see kind of a visual like, oh, that's interesting. And the idea behind our AI, which I probably explained before, but just for anyone new listening, is you turn on a recorder. It listens to everything you say while you're teaching your lesson. It transcribes that into a text document, and then it takes that text document and it renders it into a practice routine or an assignment or lesson notes or whatever you choose. There's about a dozen different choices. But the thing that's interesting about it is it writes more detailed instructions than a teacher would ever have time to write in a lesson itself. So the benefits are the student has higher quality instructions than they would normally get. The teacher didn't have to spend any of the lesson time writing those instructions. The teacher can edit them if they feel necessary, but probably don't need to. The AI will write things and mention things that you might have actually forgotten to say as a teacher. Like in the example I used for the college kids, I just did a really quick, hey, I want you to practice these chord scales and blah, blah, blah. And the AI actually wrote in the bottom, it says tip and trick. And then, semicolon said, I suggest you use a metronome when you're practicing these scales to keep yourself in time. And don't forget to warm up your hands by stretching before you actually start playing today. I never said anything about a metronome. I never said anything about warming up. But the AI model that we've got is learning more. It's built to and designed to be a teaching assistant, and it's getting better and better at that as it goes and as the models, improve. So it's sort of like you've got this really detailed description that your student can take home, and it took you no time out of the lesson. So now you're spending 30 minutes of the 30-minute lesson teaching instead of 5 minutes or 10 minutes writing notes. Because you know how it goes. Hey, practice that 5 times. And then you're writing something down as the student loops through the thing a couple times to give you a minute to write. It's like, that's how all my guitar lessons went when I was a kid. And this alleviates that and not only provides a higher quality output, but also saves time and provides all these other opportunities as a teacher. So now I'm not spending time after my lessons writing notes for students that I didn't get to during class.
Yeah.
So like you're saying with this example is like you could go and learn how to use Photoshop and go and learn how to render guitar diagrams yourself. But that's a skill set that you've got to acquire over time and practice. And you're busy human being who does not have the time to go and learn how to become a graphic designer.
Right.
It's like if you can offload something like that to the AI, that's a perfect example of when you should be offloading to the AI and not learning that skill yourself, because you've got a million other things that you need to be doing that are much more important and integral to your actual business and job and personal life and things like that. So,
Right.
if you can make yourself more functional without needing to dedicate too much time to learning how to do all of these other skills, that I think that's great, because it opens up time to go and learn the other set of skills that you actually do want to focus on and do
Mm-hmm.
want to do. Yeah. So that's how I see tools.
So I want to do what I want to do now, because we've talked extensively about AI and like what it can do in music lessons in episode 17. What I want to do now is I want to give recommendations for music instructors and maybe studio owners. And I want to do this in two different ways. So number one, I know, Mandy, you do not use AI currently, correct?
No.
And
No.
and in your classes, music together classes with like the toddlers and the parents, it doesn't make sense, right? We
Not
know,
always, right?
we know that that's like not what that's about. But is there anything on the business side of your studio where you feel like, oh, this task, if only I had someone that could do it for me, or like take it off my plate? Is there, and so what I hope we can do here is, if you have that task, maybe Sam has a recommendation, maybe I have a recommendation, and that'll spark some ideas.
Yes.
That's cool.
So any task that you can think of?
Yeah. And we do use Chat GPT a little bit, my admin and I,
Okay.
not extensively, but writing emails, coming up with copy for marketing things, stuff like that. I've used Chat GPT for AI. That's it so far. I have just been in a stunned silence for this chat right now. I mean, coming away from our last conversation with you, Sam, it was really great. And I had this kind of calming sense of, yeah, AI, this is great. It's a tool, right? That's what I took away from our conversation. AI is a tool. And then the development since then, had me like twitching a little bit, like, wow, okay. But hearing your description of how it is, again, just a tool, it learns the instructor and is a practice tool throughout the week when you're not in a lesson. My stance on all of this has been humans are essential for learning music and making music, always. But as we get deeper into this, how long until that practice John is just as good as John?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm with you. Like, I've never heard any like computer AI generated music that I enjoy. Music has breath. Music has life. AI does not have either of those things. But can't the AI just listen to, all of the top recordings of the Goldberg variations and then give me a really beautiful rendition of the Goldberg variations? I'm just a little freaked out right now, you guys. Just a little bit.
Don't worry, Mandy.
I know, and you told me not to, but
okay. So, sorry. Go ahead.
That's where my headspace is right now. I'm hearing you, and I'm with you. Music is human, and these AI, this is a tool. Just curious about what our next conversation is going to be in 2 weeks or 2 years. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
So I have two thoughts and two recommendations.
I'm sorry I derailed you, John.
No, that's okay. Number one, and this would be a recommendation for instructors, and like some of the ways that I've been experimenting with AI, to with varying degrees of success. I have a background in writing, so when I ask it to write something, I've never been happy with it. But one one thing that I tend to do is I handwrite things. When I'm like planning out my day, I write things down. I'm like a pencil and paper kind of person. And I've been using ChatGPT to transcribe my handwriting.
Yeah.
So I'll take a picture of it and it gives me that, like, a document of my handwriting, which has been really cool for me personally, because again, I like to write things down, pen and paper. If I then need to type it out, well, obviously then it's like the whole process.
Yeah.
So that's one way I've been using it that's been really helpful. My other recommendation, and like I've not used this, but I think, Sam, what you're doing with Musi.live and those lesson notes, that is a game changer, right? To have a tool that can sit in, quote unquote, on the lesson and take notes for you and the students. That's amazing. I think that's like so helpful. And I think that would be helpful for any instructor.
Yeah. I can see that being helpful in training too,
Oh
training new
my God.
instructors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you build an entire course library almost based off of that kind of thing. Like if you video recorded yourself teaching lessons and then had the AI write transcripts and notes as you go. I mean, you could, this is something I try to tell teachers to do all the time is, if you're teaching all day, and this could be for training new employees, this could be for training new students. I mean, it could be anything you want, but you can see a world, and this is today. This isn't hypothetical. You can do this right this minute, is grab a camera, phone, turn it on, record yourself teaching a lesson, have the AI write the transcript of the lesson, take the video clip, drop it into something like Opus Clips, which is an AI video editor. They'll basically edit the video for you instantly. It just knows what's useful and what's not. Grab that transcript, import it in. It will put text over the top of the video for you. You could make hundreds of shorts doing that in like 20 minutes, and that becomes marketing material right away. But you can also build course content, and you could fire that up onto Kajabi, and you can start selling a course on how to teach group classes for children. And that could be something you actually sell to other teachers. And the effort of putting that course together is 10 times easier than it was, 6 months ago when you had to put up a camera, write the transcripts, record everything, edit it yourself, do all that. It's like with a couple of AI tools, you can slap that stuff together quickly.
So, Sam, what would be your number one recommendation for an instructor?
I mean,
trying to get comfortable with AI and utilizing AI.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the reason we started with the lesson notes is that's the least intrusive thing I think you can do as an instructor. And you don't need to be using Musi for that. You can just fire up ChatGPT and turn on the like listen mode. You just hit the little microphone button and then just talk, and it will just transcribe what you talk. And then just ask ChatGPT, hey, can you turn these into lesson notes or practice routines or something for you? So that'd be like the manual way of doing it. To me, that's a super simple thing that really anyone could be doing in any lesson, in any situation. You don't need to buy fancy software. You don't need to buy the subscription to Musi. You don't need to do anything. You just open up ChatGPT and do it. That's so simple that I can't see why you wouldn't just try it and see what happens. And then on the flip side, if you're a teacher, the number one thing I hear from people is, how do I get more students? How do I grow my business? That's the number one thing I'm hearing. And as I sort of described is, marketing content is a huge factor in that sense. So
yes.
I was even talking with a teacher yesterday who he's doing exactly this. He records all of his lessons and then he puts them into a product called Opus Clips, which makes shorts out of long videos. And then it slaps the text over the top. So it's like 30 to 60-second snippets of him teaching a lesson. And he then puts those up on his social media, and that becomes marketing resources. And that is literally all automated. The recording is automated. All he has to do is download it and put it onto Opus, click render. it renders 50 different clips. You pick which ones you like, you post them on your social media account. It's like, it couldn't be more straightforward than that. And, being a good teacher or enhancing what we already can do as teachers, I think is crucial. And then, of course, making more money, getting more students is obviously the lifeblood of the actual teaching side. So, I always kind of look at both of those as really two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. So this is going to be my number one recommendation for any music instructor, any studio owner. And this is kind of a overarching strategy that I think we all should be employing at this point. And this is going to be my drive it home point for the podcast. And this one's for you, Mandy. We need to focus more on those aspects of music lessons and what music does for the human experience, right? We need to change. If our messaging is about our instructors' degrees and things like that, if our messaging is about what you're going to learn in your lessons, start changing now. Start talking about social skills. Start talking about finding your community of other musicians. Start talking about all of these other things that we know music lessons do for us that will never be replaced by AI and can't be replicated. Because if we start talking more about those things, then all of this AI stuff is not even going to be coming into the conversation, right? Because the people that are coming to us are coming for different reasons other than learning. Now, I know that might be a tricky one for Sam, you teach a lot of online lessons, right? So that might be tricky for those online instructors. However, figure out a way to craft that in there, right? Because that's going to be the thing that I think is going to ensure that AI is not going to touch.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is, the way I see it is that you got to remember at the end of the day, no matter how many AI tools you use and how much AI assistance you have as a teacher, the reason someone's choosing you is because of you and that connection they're going to have with you learning an instrument.
Yes.
And even if the teacher was literally entirely AI, now I know being teachers, that's not really the ideal outcome for us, but let's just say hypothetically, there's a world 5 years from now, 2 weeks from now. I'm just kidding. that there's an AI version that teaches everything perfectly and it's amazing and whatever. The thing that doesn't make me upset about that is the outcome is another generation of people learning music and playing music and creating music. Now, if you were telling me that the next generation is AI teachers teaching AI students, I'm out. I'm out. No interest. But if it's humans learning an instrument and they're learning the instrument to play and create music, that's a net positive in my books. It's kind of like the apps. There's learning apps already that replace teachers, and there's no AI involved in those at all. I mean, you could go get like a Simply Piano type deal or like a musician type thing where you play a game or something. And sure, that replaces a teacher in the sense that I'm not paying for music lessons. I'm now paying for this app instead. So to me, those are very equatable to this like figure, mythical AI teacher you can have a million apps, but people are still going to want to go back to the human because this music is such a human thing. And to Mandy's point, like, actually, yes, the AI will be able to render a perfect rendition of your favorite piece of music. But imagine that as a perfect play along buddy. Like, what if I live in a place where I don't have access to a physical community, where I'm maybe more isolated, so I don't have friends I can jam with? It would be amazing if I could jam with an artificial band, so I at least get the experience of kind of playing with musicians in that sense, quote unquote. So it's positives are what I see coming.
Yeah, I agree with you. If the AI instruction is leading to more accessibility,
right,
that's not a bad thing. And in fact, it can lead to more human interaction.
For
If you
sure.
fall in love with,
Yeah.
playing an instrument, then you're going to seek out the other people in your community that do, or you're going to want to take the next step and say, okay, I want to learn with a real instructor now. So it could lead people to you also.
Exactly. It could lead and it should lead.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my point. That's why we as studio owners and instructors should be talking about that outcome. We should be talking about, this is what you can do with music. You can connect with people. You can play music with people. You can play music for people, right? That's that, again, that human experience that can't be replaced.
Completely agree.
All right. Oh, big sigh of relief.
Yep, that feels better.
Big sigh of relief. Well, yeah, Sam, again, thank you so much. I'm sure we're going to be talking again soon because this is like an ever-changing, it changes so quickly. So Sam Reti, Musi.live, thank you. Mandy, thanks. We'll see everyone next time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Once again, thanks to Sam Reti for coming on the podcast. That episode that he was on before, if you want to go back and listen to that, is episode number 17. And as a quick little follow-up to something I mentioned in this episode about a task that I gave to ChatGPT, we might be releasing a little bonus episode specifically about that task. Turns out ChatGPT was not exactly honest with me with this task, and it lasted for about 5 days, so I'd like to share that with everyone. If you have topic suggestions or questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact us at info@rockschoolproprietor.com. Show notes and transcripts for this and all episodes can be found at rockschoolproprietor.com. I'm at rock.school.proprietor on Instagram if you'd like to connect with me there. You can also find me on LinkedIn and Blue Sky as John Kazicki. If you enjoyed the show and gained insight from our conversation, then we count that as a win. All we ask in return is that you pay it forward. Please share the show with someone you think needs to hear it.